if you were to back one horse, I'm giving you your 20 quid for for the festival for all 4 days, and you have to back one horse. Who's a good?
Gosh.
Hello and welcome back to another Let's Talk Racing video of our video every day leading up to the Cheltenham Festival. Really hope you're enjoying the content so far. Obviously been a little bit tricky the last couple of days, given Josh is away in Maidan, completely on the other side of the world, different time zone and everything. But we were trying to make it work. I know it's a little bit busy at the moment, but it should be back to rights come next Monday, and we'll have a full week leading up to the festival. We've obviously got the Cheltenham preview evening in Birmingham in Scallon's Club next Thursday night as well. So be sure, if you're in the Birmingham area and you fancy going to that, I'm sure there'll be links in the description. I think there's a number to call, everything you need to know to pre-book a ticket, but there will be tickets on the door as well, so don't worry, you don't have to pre-book. But hopefully we'll see a few of you there and we'll have a great night. It was great last year. Fingers crossed it'll be just as good this year. This video today, something a bit different. And I'd really like to thank, before we start the video, my dad for agreeing to do it. Few of you that follow me on Twitter will know my dad, Stephen, known as SBW, as kind of the man, the myth almost. He goes racing an awful lot. He's what got me into the game. He's very knowledgeable of the game. He's more knowledgeable than he gives himself credit for as well. But he's decided, and through a little bit of begging and screaming from myself, to come on and do a video on Zoom. Understand it's not perhaps the quality you might usually get, and I understand obviously it's a Zoom call, of course, but I hope you really do enjoy it. I really enjoyed the chat myself. A couple of Cheltenham memories from, and how Dad got into the game, plus a few horses that he quite likes for this season. Hope you guys do enjoy it. If we could hit the 500 likes, if we could hit that target, it would be absolutely brilliant. It would mean an awful lot. Obviously be easy on my dad. Not easy to come on a video and talk racing, but he's gone and done it. I thought he did very well as well. So fingers crossed you guys think as well. Please do like the video if you haven't already. Also, if you could, if you're new to this video and you do enjoy it, and you do enjoy maybe the videos over the course of the week, make sure to subscribe. We're only a couple hundred away from 19,000. It'd be great to push towards maybe 20,000 to come the end of next week. So if you haven't already subscribed, it would mean an awful lot to us if you did. But no more waffling from me. Let's get into the video. Myself and my dad talking a bit of Cheltenham racing. Stephen Blair White, or SBW is more commonly known to Midnight Tipper followers. We're saying, Dad, though, it's actually the first time you're going to be making an official appearance on the videos.
Yeah, it's taken a long time. I knew once Ruby wasn't available that I might get a call. So here I am.
And it doesn't seem to detract from the fact that when we go to race meetings now, you seem to be a minor celebrity, well, cult hero, I'd actually go as far to say.
I'm not quite sure I'd agree with that, but yeah, it's funny how things have developed over the years, and certainly I am recognised the odd time by people, which is very pleasant. And there's a lot of nice racegoers out there.
Yeah, well, it seems, especially the people that you put onto a dream to share last year, they came back up in spades at the DRF.
They were delighted. They'd obviously had a lot more on it than I had.
Yes, your cool tenor hadn't gone as far.
No, it hadn't. Exactly. But no, it's lovely when you have people coming up to you and you can have a chat about horse racing. Sure, what's the matter? It's great fun.
And I know, obviously, we started going probably around 10 years ago, I'd say now, or the kind of back end of Hurricane Fly's era. Yeah. Was the first bit I really got into. Were you massively into it when you were younger and then kind of took a bit of time away, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. So I probably started at about your age. So when I was about 13, 14, I think I was brought to the races, first of all, by a friend of my mother, rather remarkably. And we used to go she brought me up to Leopardstown, and I was kind of immediately really enjoyed it. Now, those would have been even kind of evening meetings in the summer, you know, kind of very small little meetings, because I was relatively young, hadn't a clue what was going on really. But I remember I used to go up with £1.20 because you could put 20p on the tote per race, and that was my betting. So I mean, I started to say I started small. Well, I haven't developed much since then, but I started really, really small. I used to go up with my £1.20, and if I came back with more than £1.20, I was of course delighted. And sometimes you came back with nothing, but it was I always kind of enjoyed it. And then I suppose I started to go to some of the slightly bigger meetings and the winter meetings, you know, the Christmas festival and the sweeps hurdle and meetings like that. And I suppose the first horse that really took my fancy was a horse that probably perhaps some of your slightly more vintage viewers will remember, called Anna Glog's Daughter was the name of the mare. She was a famous mare. She was a front runner, 2 mile chase. She won the Arkle in Cheltenham, I think, by 25 lengths in 1980. I think it was 1980. And she won. She was a tremendous jumper, and I've always loved jumpers since. As you know, I've always loved front runners since, and that's kind of where that came from. And she was one of these horses. She was a bit of a tearaway, but she was a beautiful jumper, and she just made it kind of magic. And she had some quite famous victories. I remember one. I think she won a handicap of, and this will seem remarkable now, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. She won a handicap of 12 stone 12.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is pretty kind of unheard of stuff, but she did, you know, I mean, I think they put a £7 claimer on her, so she was down to 12.5, but she still won. She got beaten in a champion chase. I think she was injured and she came second, but she was a tremendously brave horse. She ran about 100 races, I'd suspect, in total, and then went to stud. But that was kind of how I kind of got into it. And then you were talking about the era of Dawn Run, the famous Dawn Run, and I saw Dawn run at Leopardstown, and that was kind of, again, that was the kind of magic of racing. And so I kind of went. I was a season ticket holder, member for many years at Leopardstown. And I used to go out actually to the Phoenix Park, which is long since closed, but I used to get the bus out to the Phoenix Park in the summer to watch summer racing. And then I would, but when I got married and then I had kids, etc., it was all a little bit more difficult for a few years until you came along.
Yeah, well, I was interested in this though, Dad, because you only took me to the races when I was in my mid-teens, and yet you had no hesitation bringing me age 3 to Shamrock Rovers. So I wonder
That's
where it's all gone wrong.
that's real commitment for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure whether that's for the benefit of me or not, but
No,
um,
probably not. But you've had to suffer with that for over the years.
yes, very much so. But anyway, in the last couple of years, obviously, we've been very lucky to go to Cheltenham. The last, well, we went in the year just before COVID, I suppose, hit
Yeah.
2020, and then the last 2 years where we've gone from the full week. You're not going for the full week, a little bit like myself. You're going Tuesday, Wednesday this year, but
Yeah.
I don't know about you. The full week is tremendous, but you do leave on the Friday evening after racing, and you're absolutely pooped.
Oh, you're cooked. Yeah. I mean, it's a long old week. It's a fantastic week. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's brilliant fun. Um, but like I usually, you young lads kind of have me run ragged, and by the time I've had my dinner, I mean, first of all, you sit down for your dinner at maybe 8 o'clock in the evening, and you realize you haven't sat down. You
Oh,
haven't sat down for 9 or 10 hours. Do you know what I mean? And you know, you've been walking around, you've been bustling with the crowds, you've been doing all the stuff, and you just find, you know, you have a bit of dinner, and then you're kind of go, oh my Lord, I'm exhausted. Do you know what I mean? And you have, like, I tend to go back to the flat and do some homework for the following day, while you guys continue on. But it's That's a magic week. I mean, it is I mean, there is something magical about Cheltenham. I think as a race course, it's a magnificent place to watch sport. I love watching live sport, and live sport, it doesn't really get much better than live sport at Cheltenham. And in particular, I think when you've gone racing throughout the winter months, and so you've been to Fairy House and you've been to Leopardstown, you know what I mean? You've been to Christmas Leopardstown, then you've been to the DRF, and I've been to Nace a couple of times and that kind of thing. That you kind of, this is the culmination of it. I mean, this is kind of everything, certainly from an Irish perspective, everything comes together at Cheltenham. All the top horses are going over, and you have your fancies, I suppose. There's certain horses that you might have followed throughout the winter, and this is kind of when it all comes into play. Do you know what I mean? That you're kind of, the certain horses you want to back, and if they win, there's a great feeling of satisfaction from that. For me anyway, there is. I mean, and some people say, well, a 4-1 winner at Sedgefield is the same as a 4-1 winner at Cheltenham and everything. And I kind of
They're
go,
sad people, those people.
yeah, exactly. It's not really. Do you know what I mean? Like, the reason you're so pleased is because you've had it's been in your head. You've liked a specific horse. You've gone over with the intention of backing a number of different horses. And if some of them come in, there's a bit of a thrill about that you've actually you've plotted this, do you know what I mean, in a way, and I love that. That's the great fun of it. And I mean, I'm not a big gambler at all. I don't put on sizable sums of money. I don't want to put on sizable sums of money, but there's great satisfaction in having a couple of winners. But it's the sport and just the whole buzz of the place is it's a magical arena to watch sport in.
Yeah, no, and last year was no different. There was the relative. Well, I don't know whether it's iconic or not, of the photo that Josh took of me after Marine won. What gets little known in that photo is that you were giving me a dig in the shoulder because you were just as pumped up. That you've been roaring in my right ear that I've gone deaf, and then the shoulder's been decapitated.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have a bit more of that this season. Obviously,
that would be nice. That was a lovely start, because my start usually in the Supreme up to hadn't been great on course. So that was a really, to get Marine in was absolutely lovely. I mean, that was a really nice kind of start to the meeting, and in some ways it kind of made the whole thing, that certainly that first day, that it just kind of set the whole thing off. It was marvelous.
Yeah, well, I'm sure plenty of people will be intrigued to know who you've been beavering away at, trying to see. You've obviously been to as you mentioned, you've been to a lot of racing, so I'm holding you to high standards there, because you've been the one on course. I've been longingly looking from the sidelines.
Well, you've been lucky enough to get over for some of them, so that's
definitely.
You've actually done pretty well, considering you're living in London.
Yes, no, I do. I owe my boss a very good turns. He's done me very well. But I suppose looking at the races, I've kind of said to you to maybe have a couple of horses on your mind that, between grade ones and handicaps. I know definitely there's kind of a grade one form line that you're very intrigued with possible horses in multiple different races coming from the Dublin Racing Festival.
Yeah, I suppose I was huge. I've been following. I suppose this started really with I backed Slade Steele, and I've kind of followed him all season, and I'd been impressed with him, and I remain kind of impressed with him. And so when he was beaten comprehensively by Ballyburn, I kind of thought, that is form now that you'd want to think about very, very carefully. I was also very impressed at I think it was at the maiden hurdle at the Hatton's Grace meeting, when Firefox beat Ballyburn. And I think Firefox remains the only horse that's beaten Ballyburn on a race course. So funnily enough, I'm kind of still interested in him, and he's kind of, I don't know, is he 8 or 9 to 1 or something like that? I think he's a good each way bet. I really do. I think he's got a chance. I mean, his Lawler's run is poor. There's no getting away from it. I don't quite know what went wrong there. I mean, did he really get 2.5? He certainly seemed to be going quite well.
Yeah, they've come out. I think they haven't really noted what the excuses were, but they've said to everyone there were excuses. So they've
Yeah,
clearly.
so we're not
Now
really
that
any the
old
wiser.
chestnut can
Yeah,
be used
but
in any sense.
if you forgive him that run, his form stacks up pretty strongly, I think, and he jumped very well the day he beat Ballyburn, and he beat Ballyburn well. But Ballyburn was then brilliant at, against Slade Steel. I thought that was a really impressive performance. Obviously, he'd been impressive the time before that as well. So, he's really kind of grown into it. I suspect I think he'll probably win whichever race he goes for. If I'm being honest, I think he probably would be the one, but I'd be backing. I think even if he runs in the Supreme, I'd still have a little bet on Firefox at each way. If he decides to go the other way, I think the price of Slade Steel will go out on the day, and therefore he might be worth a little each way nibble as well. In the whatever that one's now called, it used to be the Ballymore. But that's a kind of a form line that I really quite like. And that also brings in King of Kingsfield as well, who came third, I think, and reasonably well beaten. But he'd been impressive. I mean, he'd run well in the Grade 1 in the Hatton's Grace weekend, and then had won his maiden very well at Christmas, very impressive at Christmas. So I think that form I think even coming third that day is no disgrace at all. And he seems to have a feasible mark. I think you were saying, is he going to go for the county probably? Is that the one?
Well, it seems they're humming and hawing between the Supreme and the county. Now, he would have no chance in the Supreme.
I couldn't see. I don't think he's a Grade 1 horse in terms of winning. Sorry, certainly not an elite Grade 1 horse in terms of winning the Supreme. But he, if he has a mark of 140, that sounds feasible, I have to say. And he's a horse that they seem to have kind of, I think maybe he may be just coming to the boil now. So he's a horse that would definitely interest me.
Yeah, you have a couple more. There was a horse I was very intrigued that you were mentioning to me for the Grand Annual. I find the Grand Annual an awfully difficult race, and I don't want to obviously put the two of us under the bus. But in the few years that we have been there, I don't think we've had anything in the first 5 of the Grand Annual. So this could be slightly with trepidation. But
yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, an English trained horse for us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I came over and met you for the November meeting, we saw Triple Trade, the Tizard horse, win. I think that over that weekend, and I kind of wondered whether a really strongly run 2-mile race might suit him. He's got a mark of 138 or something like that, which again seemed feasible to me. I think he's 20-1. Is he worth a little pop kind of each way? He generally jumps pretty well. You feel he'll be, if he can kind of keep in the race at all, he'll be staying on strongly at the end when a lot of them will have tried enough. That was just my thinking. I suppose I quite I just quite liked that those form lines that he brought to the race, and he seems like quite a big price. Of course, you don't know. You're still a few days. You're still 2 weeks out, and you don't know exactly who's going to run and what the weight's going to be like, etc., etc., etc. So there's still a lot of stuff going on, but he was just a horse that kind of interested me.
And the cardinal sin of us on LTR is John Joe O'Neill horses. We haven't been John Joe's biggest fan. There's been unfortunate disappointments for horses that we've been very keen on before, and you're committing the cardinal sin because you quite fancy one of his horses.
I do, yeah. I like Springwell Bay as a horse, and I just think that I think at the moment he could run in the Pertemps. He could run in, is it the Coral Cup, I think. I just think he's a horse that I've always quite liked, and I think he's a horse that might like slightly better ground and might be a reasonable price on even on the day, whichever race he goes for. I think those races they tend to be so competitive, and I can't go for. I mean, there's this, and every now and then, of course, there's short price horses that win, but I can't be backing 4 or 5 to 1 favorites in these types of races when, in fact, almost any horse could win. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so I'd be looking at something a bit further down the market, and I think at the moment, certainly for the Coral Cup, I saw maybe was he 16 to 1 or 20 to 1 or something like that. So that would kind of interest me in terms of a horse that might run really well on the day.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think he's maybe slightly shorter for the Pertemps, which he may also.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, look, but he's still an each way price. Interesting. Just one horse in the Pertemps, just because I know you've backed her a few times this year with success as well. Way Cool, who I think is pretty much joint favourite for the race. My worry with her is, like, she's not been, like, the Pertemps is near on often won by a horse that's been plotted for the race all year. And I know she's a better type of horse, but remember a few years ago when Tracy's Enniscorthy was like winning the Pertemps qualifiers and was progressing up the ranks. Is she got more to go to, or is she getting to the stage now where she's coming well, like the handicapper's in charge? I kind of feel that's the way.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with you there. And she's been really good, and she seems very, very game and very genuine. And you love that type of, you like that type of horse who's going to run to the line. I just have that sense that the handicapper's probably got her measure at this stage. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't have said that Cheltenham seemed maybe the plan. And now that they've got to the point where she's run so well and she's won a couple of good races, and she's obviously earned a fair bit of money, there's probably that element of kind of, well, we might as well have a go at this. And I agree with that. I don't disagree that she should be running, but I'd certainly be struggling. She's the type of horse that, again, going back to and I know it's not all about prices and stuff like that, but joint favorite for that race, that probably means, is that 7 to 1 or something like that?
Yeah.
I would want to be well into double figures before I'd be interested. I think I would want to be double that, you know what I mean, like 14 to 1, and then you might go, oh, she's actually got a good each way chance, you know what I mean? But those kind of prices for that kind of race are very skimpy, I think.
Yeah, well, I think you're slightly going for pie in the sky, thinking she's going to be 14 to 1. But if she was,
no, absolutely. And so as a result, I may not, but it would almost take something like that for me to be particularly interested,
Completely understand. One last one I know you quite like for the Boodles. I've obviously come to, like, I don't know why you're putting up a horse for the Boodles when I've given everyone a 40 to 1 winner for the race. But the horse,
that's the famous Palamon.
That is the famous Palamon,
Yeah,
who I've got confirmation is going to run in the race. So at least we have.
Well, that's always a good start.
It is a good start. But the horse that beat him the last day, I know you quite like.
Yeah, I do. I like Endarwi. Funnily enough, he's a horse that I've kind of followed. So I backed him even his first day out. And he came, I think, 5th. And then the next day out, he came 3rd, I think. And then he won really, really easily. I mean, I know the form book will only say he won by 2 or 3 lengths or something like that, but Jack virtually had the horse stopped by the time he got to the line, I think. I mean, I think he could have won by 20 or 25 lengths if he'd wanted to. And he seems to be a horse on the up. He was rated in the 90s, I think, as a flat horse. And therefore, you've got to, well, first of all, that's quite high, and therefore would indicate that the horse has a certain amount of class. You would expect, and I was looking back at the flat form, and some of it's on better ground, so you would expect that if you got more spring-like ground, that he might be even more effective on that than he would be on the soft and heavies that he's been ploughing through it so far. So he just, I think he's about 10-1 at the moment for the Boodles. He would certainly be an each way play for me. Is he brilliantly weighted? No, he's probably not. He's probably, and there's this Lark in the Morning in that race, and but my experience of Lark in the Morning has not been good. I've backed it a couple of times, and it's never performed. He again though was a horse ranked in the 90s, I think, on the flat. So again, could be a spring ground horse. If the ground came up better. And let's face it, he's off 1-2-2 or something. Something that is very low, and therefore likely to be running off a very low weight compared to Endowie, who's going to have 11 stone something. So there's probably a good argument on the form, just plain on the form book, that Lark in the Morning would beat him. But again, just the price, you're kind of going, it's so short, and he hasn't really done an awful lot. I mean, he's not a horse, if he'd come out and won like Endowie has done it once and come out and absolutely blitzed a field, you might go, well, there's really something there. I kind of tend to prefer
A little bit
to
of
see
form
it
there.
rather than just be relying on he's supposed to be Joseph's best type of talk. I prefer to actually see them do it before I back them, if you like, at least once.
Yeah. No, well, I think you've made some very compelling cases there, Dad. If you were to back one horse, I'm giving you your 20 quid for the festival for all 4 days, and you have to back one horse. Who's a good?
Gosh, I will. I probably need a little bit more than 20 quid, but I'd back Ballyburn. I think I'd back Ballyburn in whichever race he goes for.
I think that's as good a case as can be made.
Yeah.
Now, it's been lovely.
Can I make one other case? And this now I know is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but if you're a slightly bigger punter, so somebody who might like to put a little bit more money down, I've got a bet that comes in, I think, at 2-5. 2-5, that I think though is in many respects kind of I would have hoped almost a certainty, which is in the Mayor's Novice between Jake de Grugy and Brighter Days Ahead. If you backed both of them,
yeah,
you get one at 7-4 and you get one at 3-1. I'm almost positive that one of those is going to win that race. I just cannot see anything else coming into that race.
I think that is. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So it's a funny thing, but actually, you know the way you look at a race and you kind of go, well, I sometimes look at races and I go, to me, that is a 2-horse race. It really is. And I can see the two of them pulling 10-20 lengths clear of everything else in that race.
I think they could be two incredibly smart mares. It won't be the last time before them coming into a March festival, I suspect.
Yeah. No, I mean, they both looked. I mean, I was hugely impressed with Jake de Grugy, but you couldn't fail to be impressed by the other horse the other day in Navan, I think. And Elliot and Jack Kennedy are absolutely.
I've almost never seen them as a few.
No, they're really giddy about that horse. So you're kind of going, these are two really good horses. So just, as I say, because there's some really skimpy prices out there, you know, the El Fabiolos, the Lossy Mouths, the things like that, you know what I mean? And they're almost that kind of price just on their own.
Yes, you're getting too far as a bullet.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's definitely is something outside the box. Anyway, Dad, thanks for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk. Not like we don't do it very regularly. Just not
Well, we tend to do it every night, so
yeah, no, just not with cameras involved. So
yeah.
I wish you the best of luck. I'm sure you will be in the Feathered Fish on the Tuesday and Wednesday night of Cheltenham, sipping a gamma ray or two.
Yeah, I will indeed. I mean, that's certainly the plan. Yeah. So if anyone's watching this and sees me in the Feathered Fish, please come up and say hello. I'll be delighted to have a chat about all things racing.
Or
And
Shamrock Rovers, of course.
well, of course, Shamrock Rovers, of course, is my other great love. But yeah, I doubt whether I'll have as much conversation about them as I will about horse racing.
Yeah, seems a bit more of a niche topic, but hopefully everyone enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give it a like down below. Obviously, subscribe to the channel. We're doing a video a day up until the Cheltenham Festival. Thanks to Dan for joining me.